Bob Lazar is a controversial figure. In 1989, he claimed to have worked at a secret military facility called S4, located within the Area 51 compound, where he allegedly analyzed the propulsion system and reactor of an alien spacecraft powered by an anti-gravity engine using element 115. Curiously, neither element 115 nor Area 51 was publicly known at that time. So, was he telling the truth, or is it all just an elaborate hoax? Let's dive in. Who is Bob Lazar? Robert Scott Lazar was born on January 26, 1959 in Coral Gables, Florida. His passion for science and technology was evident from an early age. He was already tinkering with jet bikes as a teenager and later with jet cars. There was no doubt that Bob Lazar was a smart individual, but there was considerable doubt about his academic credentials. It's likely that he attended Pierce College, a public community college in the San Fernando Valley, and contrary to his claims, he does not hold master's degrees from MIT or Caltech. The biggest red flag? This. On his marriage certificate dated July 30th, 1980, he listed highest school grade completed as 12, which suggests a high school diploma rather than a college degree, even though he describes himself as an engineer. In 1982, an article appeared in the Los Alamos Monitor featuring Bob Lazar, in which he presented his Honda with a jet engine. The article referred to him as a physicist working at Los Alamos National Labs. The article's author, Terry England, later stated in August 2021 that he had not verified Lazar's claims at the time, but accepted them at face value. Lazar's supervisor at the time, John Jarmer, testified that Lazar did not work there as a physicist, but rather as a temporary electrical technician through the staffing firm Kirk Meyer, and that he must have held a security clearance to gain access. Additionally, Bob Lazar's name appears in the Los Alamos telephone directory, and his then-wife, Carol Nadine Strong, also worked there. However, a spokesman for the Los Alamos National Laboratory testified Bob Lazar was affiliated with Los Alamos National Laboratory through his work as a subcontractor, and there is no record that he held a security clearance at Los Alamos. The issue of security clearance is one of the many contradictory aspects of this case. According to employees, Lazar must have held a Q clearance from the Department of Energy in order to gain access at all, while a spokesman claims there's no evidence of such clearance. Even if Bob Lazar had worked there through an outside contractor, his clearance would have been essential for access to Los Alamos and should have been archived under the Federal Records Act. Considering the central and strategic role that Los Alamos National Laboratory LANL played in the US nuclear weapons program during the Cold War, it's hard to believe that anyone, say a Russian KGB agent, could have simply answered "Da" when asked if they had clearance. But here's where it gets even weirder. In 1988, Lazar's passion for pushing scientific boundaries allegedly led to a job with EG&G Special Projects, a defense contractor that brought him into S4, a highly secretive facility within Area 51. According to his own account, he was supported by none other than Edwin Teller, the father of the hydrogen bomb. There's a YouTube video in which Edward Teller is asked by a reporter about Bob Lazar. He's explicitly given the chance to simply deny knowing him. Teller responds, "I will sit silent. You're not going to get an answer out of me on that." So while he didn't confirm anything, he also didn't deny knowing Lazar. At S4, Lazar's world allegedly changed forever. He claims he was tasked with reverse engineering advanced propulsion systems from extraterrestrial technology. In March 1989, Bob Lazar invited friends, at least twice, to observe and film alleged test flights of UFOs in the Nevada desert. Among them was John Lear, whose father developed Learjet. By May 1989, thanks to investigative reporter George Knapp, Lazar went public, initially under the pseudonym Dennis. Coincidentally, Dennis is also said to have been the first name of his supervisor at S4. If you'd like to dive deeper into Bob Lazar's story, Reddit user JackFrost71 and Medium contributor Signals Intelligence have compiled a wealth of detailed research. You'll find both links in the video description. What evidence is there that Bob Lazar worked on secret projects? Contrary to statements by the US government that Bob Lazar never worked in the Area 51 environment, we believe there's little doubt that he did. The real question is whether he used a resume padded with fictitious master's degrees from elite American universities to secure a position as a physicist, or whether he worked there simply as a technician. Lazar demonstrated insider knowledge. For example, he knew that the Antimatter 2000 was used as a biometric hand scanner to measure bone structure for security clearance. In 2013, it was confirmed that such a device was indeed used for access control at Area 51 during that time. A similar device also appeared in the 1977 Steven Spielberg film Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which means this detail alone is not definitive proof. Still, it's curious how closely the movie prop resembled actual technology, later revealed to have been used in classified settings. In addition, Lazar possessed a payslip from the Naval Intelligence Service that appears genuine at first glance. Notably, it lists the Department of Naval Intelligence rather than the official designation, Office of Naval Intelligence, which has led to much speculation. The Navy, for its part, denies the document's authenticity, and the amount shown suggests it may have been for short-term employment. Further complicating the narrative, Christopher Mellon, the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence under Presidents Clinton and George W. Bush, stated in an interview with Joe Rogan,
He did falsify his educational records. There was a bar off base where the scientists and a lot of the aviators and people would go and hang out. He was frequented that place and picked up information. So a friend of mine claims to know the gal who was his supervisor when he worked out there and knows what he was actually doing and where he was located, and claims that he was a guy who checked radiation on badges.
Therefore, we believe there's sufficient evidence to conclude that he worked in the Area 51 environment. What does Lazar say about his time in S4? Bob Lazar's claim to have seen 9 alien spacecraft and to have worked on the reactor and propulsion system on one of them, the Sport model from the Zeta Reticuli binary star system located 39.3 light-years away, is certainly extraordinary. This system became famous in UFO folklore due to the star map in the alleged abduction case of Betty and Barney Hill in the 1960s. To date, however, no exoplanets have been confirmed in this system, despite numerous observations by space telescopes such as the Herschel Space Observatory and the Spitzer Space Telescope. Instead of planets, a debris disk similar to the Kuiper Belt was detected, although more recent data from 2018 cast doubt on that finding. Still, credit must be given to Bob Lazar for bringing Area 51 into global public awareness. Its existence wasn't officially acknowledged until 2013. When CIA documents were declassified. Element 115, Moscovium, as an anti-gravity source. One of Bob Lazar's most intriguing claims from 1989 concerns element 115, which he said served as the energy source for an extraterrestrial spacecraft. According to him, when bombarded with protons, it produced antimatter, fueling a reactor and generating a gravitational field that bent space-time and enabled propulsion. It sounded like something straight out of a science fiction novel. But how much of it holds up under scientific scrutiny? Moscovium, as the element is known today, was first synthesized in Dubna, Russia in 2003 by colliding calcium-48 with americium-243. However, it's extremely unstable. All known isotopes of Moscovium decay rapidly via alpha decay into other superheavy elements such as nihonium. The most stable known isotope, Moscovium-290, has a half-life of just 0.65 seconds. There is, however, the so-called island of stability, a hypothetical region of the periodic table where certain superheavy elements could have significantly longer half-lives. If a previously undiscovered, stable isotope of element 115 exists within that zone, Lazar's claims might suddenly appear in a very different light. Gravity Type A and Type B. Bob Lazar claimed that the UFO's anti-gravity propulsion system used 2 distinct types of gravitational fields. Gravity A, a strong, short-range force used to bend space-time for propulsion. Gravity B, a weak, long-range force responsible for everyday gravity, like the pull between the Earth and the Moon. This distinction, however, does not align with current physics. There's no recognized theory that defines 2 separate types of gravity, and no experimental evidence supports such a division. According to Albert Einstein's general relativity, mass bends space-time, and that's the gravity we observe. Even in alternative models like string theory, there's no strong gravity A. While some speculate theories attempt to explain dark energy by splitting gravity into components, these models are extremely complex and mostly inconsistent with observations. Waveguide for gravitational beams. Another fascinating claim by Bob Lazar involves the so-called waveguide of the UFO, which he said could emit directed gravitational waves to distort space. This supposedly allowed the craft to wrap the space around it and essentially fall forward, even faster than light, by compressing space-time. But did Bob Lazar actually predict gravitational waves 26 years before their discovery? Not exactly. Lazar used similar terminology, but in a completely different and speculative context. His gravity waveguides have nothing to do with the gravitational waves that were scientifically confirmed by LIGO in 2015. So no, this wasn't a scientific bullseye. It was more science fiction vocabulary than physics. While gravitational waves do exist, they're extremely weak and currently cannot be manipulated. There's no known way to bundle or focus them. Theoretically, space-time distortion could be achieved using exotic matter, as in the concept of the Alcubierre drive, but that remains purely hypothetical. Antimatter reactor without heat emission. Another major issue is how the reactor supposedly worked, according to Bob Lazar. As mentioned earlier, the UFO used a reactor that generated antimatter from element 115. When this antimatter came into contact with regular matter, it annihilated and released energy without any significant heat emission. Scientifically, that's very hard to support. Antimatter annihilation produces pure energy in the form of gamma radiation, which is extremely difficult to control. A reactor without thermal losses is unphysical. It violates the second law of thermodynamics. Producing antimatter currently requires far more energy than it gives back. In short, his reactor design is neither scientifically plausible nor technologically feasible, at least according to what we currently understand in physics. No cables in the UFO, only waves. Wiring complex devices can be a nightmare, but according to Lazar, the builders of his sport model found a solution. Inside the supposedly extraterrestrial spacecraft, there were no cables or circuits. Everything was controlled via some kind of resonance or wave-based transmission, supposedly a form of remote control using frequency tuning. From a scientific perspective, this is highly speculative and lacks any basis in real technology. Wireless controls is theoretically possible, e.g. radio, optical or quantum-based systems, but not in the way Lazar describes. No known technology can operate complex control systems entirely wirelessly, loss-free and reliably in the gigahertz or terahertz range. Conclusion. Several body language analysts have reviewed Bob Lazar's statements over the years and consider him credible. He's also passed multiple lie detector tests, though these results are far from conclusive. Edward Teller's refusal to answer on camera whether he knew Lazar or helped him get a job leaves room for interpretation. If he truly didn't know him, a simple denial would have sufficed. Lazar publicly revealed the existence of Area 51 at a time when it was still officially denied and known only to insiders. Whether a stable isotope of element 115 exists is still unclear. If one were discovered, it would greatly strengthen Lazar's credibility, though it's highly unlikely that it would have the extraordinary properties he described. Speculating that new elements will be added to the periodic table is one thing. Naming a stable isotope of a highly unstable element decades in advance is something else entirely. Did he study at MIT and Caltech? Almost certainly not. Even George Knapp stated in a video from Exopolitics, Denmark, that he doesn't believe Lazar earned a master's degree from either institution. But, as he noted, Lazar wouldn't be the first person to fabricate academic credentials to land a prestigious job. It's also doubtful he studied physics at all. Many of his technical claims, especially regarding gravity and element 115, contradict modern physics or remain highly speculative. For example, there's no such thing as a strong or weak gravitational force in established science. There's a lot of contradictory information about Bob Lazar, and US authorities aren't entirely blameless. Two of the most secretive institutions in America claim they've no records of Lazar's employment or security clearance, even though such records are legally required to be archived for decades. That alone sounds more implausible than many of Lazar's own claims. Still, no hard evidence has surfaced to prove he worked on extraterrestrial technology. Many of his statements seem technically possible, but they remain unverified. Some have been disproven, others remain unconfirmed. Yet that hasn't hurt his popularity. Today, Lazar is more famous than he was 36 years ago. Notably, respected UFO researchers like Jacques Vallée and Stanton Friedman were skeptical of his claims. The impression that Lazar might be an imposter has never been fully dispelled, but many still want to believe his extraordinary story. His narrative has entered pop culture. The 1994 video game UFO Enemy Unknown, also known in North America as XCOM UFO Defense, incorporated elements of Lazar's claims. The XCOM series was rebooted in 2012, continuing the legacy. Alternatively, it's possible Lazar was used, knowingly or not, by intelligence agencies to spread disinformation. Perhaps he was shown false material, like the origin of the supposed UFO from the Zeta Reticuli system, to distract from real black projects. If you think US intelligence wouldn't do such a thing, we recommend the 2013 documentary Mirage Men. What do you think? Is Bob Lazar legit? Does the US military have access to alien technology? Let us know in the comments.